the ego?
One of the things that Bashar has talked about extensively is this whole issue of belief systems, because from Bashar's people's point of view, the way we actually create our experience in reality is with our definitions, is with our belief systems. Now, we've heard the phrases, that our thoughts create our reality, and in a sense, sometimes the idea of belief and thought might be interchangeable, but Bashar tends to be a little more specific about the idea that thoughts aren't necessarily as strong as beliefs. Emotions and thoughts issue from beliefs. In other words, he's saying you're not going to have a feeling about anything until you have a belief about something. You're not going to really think a certain way until you have a definition of that thing. So to him, the first stage is we have to get in touch with what our definitions of life are and our relationship to it. And when we do, we can see that it's those definitions, those belief systems, that are really governing how we experience life. So in terms of the ego structure, we need an ego to focus us in physical reality, to have a physical experience. But the negative ego, the negative side of the ego, is usually the result of negatively oriented belief systems, fear-based belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
So people are reacting to things that they may even be unconscious of and expressing negative ego mostly because they're afraid of something that they believe to be true that they may be unaware of. So from Bashar's perspective, the most important thing in dealing with the negative side of the ego is to get in touch and with those beliefs define very clearly what it is the belief is. And once you define it, once you identify it, it becomes easier to change. It becomes easier to understand why it's there, why we may be holding on to it. And we can start to see why we've been holding on to it and why we don't need to hold on to it anymore once we understand what our relationship to that belief is and start redefining ourselves in a new way. And once we start changing those negative beliefs into positive beliefs, the expression of a negative ego is no longer required because we're no longer coming from a fear-based reality.
And how do you change your beliefs?
Well, as I said, the first step from Bashar's perspective is you have to identify them. You have to find out what they are. Many times, from his perspective, identification of a belief alone is enough to actually let it go. Because once you understand what the belief is, oftentimes, he says, it no longer makes sense to hold on to it. You realize what it is, and you realize it has nothing to do with you anymore, that it might be something you picked up from your parents or unconsciously from society. And once you really clearly identify what the belief is and why you're holding on to it, you often recognize through that identification process that you just simply actually don't have a reason to hold on to it anymore, and you let it go.
Does Bashar ever talk about why humanity as a whole has given their power away to authority figures or groups like religion or the medical field or politicians or...
Yeah, he's talked about the idea that, of course, in physical reality, especially one that is, in a sense, this vibrationally dense, so to speak, for lack of a better term, we tend to forget our connection to creation. We can get caught up in the illusion of power. Bashar often says, what we're attempting to learn here is to use the power of the illusion instead of succumb to the illusion of power. And we need to turn that around and understand that everything we're creating is in a sense, our creation and our co-creation with others. And that we don't have to believe we are so disempowered that we have to turn to others to give us our power. That it all comes from us. We're all connected to Source. We're all connected to creation. And it's in forgetting that we have that connection that we tend to have the experience of being disempowered and then searching for those to give us our power back, those intermediaries. Bashar himself has said that, he's in a job, he's doing this job to put himself out of a job. He wants to teach people that they don't even have to go running to him or anyone, that we all have the ability to connect to creation, and that we all have the ability to be self-empowered and understand that we can access whatever information, whatever energy, whatever we need from Source. When we remember that we are part of creation, then we don't disempower ourselves and go running around looking for someone else to give it back to us.
Wow. I really wish you could come in. But the information is great. I'm glad you remember it.
Oh, sure. After 26 years, I basically get the concepts that he's talking about.
Why are we here?
Why are we here? Well, why not? I mean, this is one experience in creation, and we've chosen to have this experience to learn. I know that from Bashar's perspective, he knows many people talk about themselves and talk about life on Earth as if it's some sort of backwards kindergarten, and we all wonder what we're doing here, why we're here, why we're going through this. But very recently, Bashar actually started reminding us that from their perspective, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of strength to choose a reality with such great degree of darkness and limitation in it, because from their perspective, what we're doing is learning to transform the darkness into light. And he's basically saying this is really, from their perspective, like an advanced master class. We are the masters of limitation. We're learning to overcome limitation. And they applaud our strength and our courage in having chosen as spirits to have an experience in a reality of such great limitation. Because if we can overcome and transform the great limitation here, then it's kind of like, well, then nothing's impossible. If we can do this, anyone can do anything. So they look at us as if we are really an advanced master class, really learning what creation is all about, and that no matter how dark things may seem, we actually always have the ability. We're learning we always have the ability to transform that darkness into light, and that's very powerful and very empowering.
Mm-hmm. How can somebody that is a master of limitation become their own best friend, stop sabotaging themselves, live the life they say they want, but they don't see it yet?
Well, again, I think it comes back to really understanding that we deserve to love ourselves, we deserve to be loved. And again, from Bashar's perspective, that all comes down to finding out what belief systems are standing in our way of remembering that we are loved and are loving beings, to transform the fears. The idea is, from his perspective, we're a 100% energy. We're one energy. And we have different belief systems that we filter that energy through. We flow that energy through on a day-to-day basis. When we flow our energy through positive belief systems that are aligned with our true self, we feel our energy as love, joy, and passion and creativity. When we flow our energy through negative belief systems that are out of alignment with ourselves, we feel the same energy, the very same energy, as fear, doubt, hesitation, depression, hatred, anger. So basically saying that when we feel those things, when we feel the negative side of things, it's telling us, it's an indicator, it's a sign we have belief systems that we don't prefer, that are out of alignment with our true self. So we can use those feelings of feeling unloved, feeling undeserved and undeserving, to get in touch with what kind of belief systems we would have to be buying into in order to feel that way. Because again, he's saying all emotions, all feelings are secondary to something we already believe to be true, or we couldn't even have the feeling to begin with. Because when we have no definition of something, we have no feeling about it.
Right.
So he says, use the feelings. Don't judge us. Don't judge ourselves for having the feelings and start wallowing in the idea of piling negative feelings on top of negative feelings just because we had negative feelings to begin with. Use the negative feelings as indicators of what kind of beliefs we're holding on to that don't serve us, and find out what those beliefs are and change them. Then we can start rising above those ideas and not have those feelings anymore. It's not about denying the feelings. It's not about ignoring them. It's about owning them and acknowledging them. Because, again, as Bashar has often said, you cannot change what you don't own. So first you have to acknowledge that they're there for a reason, own them for having created them from our beliefs, but let them show you what those beliefs are so that if you don't prefer those beliefs, you can change them and the feelings will change with them. The experience of life will change with it.
So rather than bury all of this bad, negative feelings that you have, utilize them and notice what belief systems they're pointing to.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely, because, I think one of the misunderstandings that we have in our seeking to grow spiritually is that a lot of people